Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We have a very special guest this week. Big thanks to Dragonshield for coming on to jam some games with us. We are joined by two awesome Dragonshield representatives, Simon and Laug, for a very fun dragon-themed game. So let's see what decks everyone brought today. Up first is Matt, who's on Miirym, Sentinel Worm. This is everyone's favorite dragon typal commander, copying huge non-legendary dragons that can fly over and overwhelm his opponents. Next up is Jason on Niv-Mizzet, Guild Pact. Dubbed the Cool Niv by Jason, Jason is playing numerous 2-color permanents in order to max out the value he gets from Niv's triggered ability to draw a bunch of cards and dish out a lot of damage. Our third player today is Simon, playing Firkraag, Cunning Instigator. This dragon deck has a goad theme, attacking with dragons to goad his opponent's creatures, draw some cards, and hoping the goaded creatures get his opponent's life totals down low enough so that he can swing in for the kill. Last up is Laug, piloting Kokusho, the Evening Star. Laug wants to cast Kokusho as early as possible, then immediately sacrifice them as many times as possible to gain a bunch of life and drain out his opponents. We're about to get to the game, but before that, go ahead and like and let us know down in the comments which deck you're rooting for. We have links to our socials, public Discord server, Decklists, and Patreon in the description. Our channel is partnered with Dragonshield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or magic-related product, check out the affiliate link down in the description. Big thanks to Dragonshield for giving us the code SMOOTH5, so use that for 5% off your order at checkout. We're also partnered with Inked Gaming. Check out the affiliate link down below if you want to pick up any custom playmats. Now, on to the video.
My name is Lauge. I'm head of design at Arcane Tinman. We're the ones making Dragonshield. I've been working with product development for 12 years now, and I'm one of the old guys. I started in the early 90s, but I didn't have any money back then, so don't expect any Power 9.
I'm Simon. I'm a student worker here at Dragonshield. I've been working here for 2 years now, and I work with quality assurance and documentation primarily. I play a lot of Magic the Gathering.
Thank you guys for joining us, and it looks like Lauge wins the die roll. He'll start off with a swamp into Traveler's Amulet and then pass to Matt. Matt will start off with Thundering Falls and then surveil Ancient Silver Dragon to his graveyard and then pass the turn to Jason. Jason will start off with a Prismatic Vista as land for turn and immediately fetch with it for a basic plains. He'll then pay 1 and bounce that plains to his hand to play Vanefire Border Post tapped, and then he'll pass to Simon, who starts off with Haven of the Spirit Dragon as land for turn, and then he'll cast the coveted turn 1 Soul Ring and then pass. Now on Lauge's turn, he'll play another swamp and then tap for 1 and cast Dark Ritual. Then with that 3 black mana, he'll cast Necropotence. And it resolves, so he'll pay 5 life to it to exile 5 cards. Then on end step, those cards go to hand, and then on cleanup, he exiles a swamp and Bubbling Muck, and then the turn is passed to Matt, who just plays a tapped Ketria Triumph and passes to Jason. And Jason will replay his plains and then cast Arcane Signet and pass to Simon. And it looks like on end step, Lauge wants to crack Traveler's Amulet for a swamp. Then we'll move to Simon's turn, where he plays a basic mountain as land for turn, then he'll tap for 4 and cast Territorial Hellkite. He'll then move to combat, and the Territorial Hellkite has to attack someone at random, and the dice have chosen Lauge. So the Hellkite is turned sideways, and he takes 6 damage. The turn is then passed to Lauge, and he'll start off with a basic swamp, and then he'll cast Jet Medallion. After this, he'll pay 1 to cast Soldevi Adonate. Then he'll pay 2 life to Necropotence to fill that hand back up on end step. The turn is then passed to Matt, and unfortunately he misses out on a land drop, so he just passes the turn to Jason and discards Drakuseth on cleanup. Now on Jason's turn, he'll cast Fires of Yavimaya, and then play Misty Rainforest and immediately fetch with it. He declares he's going to find Rogrin Triumph and then passes to Simon while searching. Simon starts off with a Sulphur Falls, which comes in untapped, then he'll tap for 5 and cast his commander, Firkraag. He'll then move to combat, and Matt is the random player chosen, so he'll take 6 in the air, and then Lauge takes 3 commander. Attack trigger, and the Adonate will be goaded, and then upon connecting, Firkraag will trigger, seeing as one of the dragons had to attack this combat, so it'll get a 1/1 counter, and he draws a card. Then the turn is passed to Lauge, and we'll see another swamp get played. Then he'll move to combat, and there's a goaded creature, so 1 is swung at Matt, and Firkraag will trigger, getting another counter and drawing Simon another card. Then after this, we move to post-combat main phase, and we see a Sanguine Bond get cast. Matt decides it's time to cast his Mana Drain, so it's countered, and then Lauge will pay 3 life to Necropotence. The turn is then passed to Matt, and he gets that 5 colorless mana, and then plays Snow-Covered Island as land for turn. He'll then use 2 of that colorless mana, and then tap his Triumph for a green to cast Cultivate. This finds a Snow Mountain to his hand, and a Forest to the battlefield tapped. After this, he'll tap for a red and a blue and use a colorless to cast Sarkhan's Soul Aflame, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason. And then Jason starts off with Exotic Orchard as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 5 and cast Niv-Mizzet Guild Pact. He'll then move to combat, and thanks to Fires of Yavimaya, he's able to swing for 6 Commander at Simon, who just takes it. Niv-Mizzet has a combat damage trigger, and he'll point 2 damage at the Adnate, Jason will gain 2 life, and draw 2 cards. And that's because he has 2 color pairs among permanents he controls. He'll then pass the turn to Simon, and he'll start off with Crucible the Spirit Dragon as land for turn. After this, Simon moves to combat, and Territorial Hellkite chooses Lauge as its target. So 6 damage is swung towards him, and then 5 Commander is swung towards Matt. There is an attack trigger, and Sarkhan is goaded. Everyone will then take their damage, and since the Territorial Hellkite has to attack, Firkraag will get a counter and draw Simon a card. Then post-combat, he'll cast a Mana Form Hellkite, and then pass the turn, where we'll see Swamp number 5 hit the field for Lauge, and then Kokusho is cast for 5 mana. After this, 1 more life is paid to Necropotence, and then the turn is passed to Matt, where he'll start off with a Rejuvenating Springs as land for turn. And then thanks to Sarkhan, Matt's able to cast Ancient Copper Dragon, and Sarkhan's able to become Ancient Copper Sarkhan. Then Matt moves to combat, and Sarkhan will fly over to Jason and hit him for 6 damage. There's a damage trigger, and Matt will roll a d20. It is only a 3, so he makes 3 treasure tokens. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he'll start off by casting Kiora's Follower. And thanks to it having haste, he's able to use it to float 4 more mana to cast Hostage Taker. And for some reason, a pirate is able to take an Ancient Copper Dragon hostage. Weird. Anyways, Jason will then move to combat and hit Simon for another 6 Commander. Damage trigger, X is 4 now, so 4 damage is dealt to Sarkhan. Jason will gain 4, and he'll draw 4 cards. And post-combat, he plays Arid Mesa. Turn is passed to Simon, who puts a counter on Crucible. On end step, then he'll play Island. Then he'll cast Irenicus's Vile Duplication, targeting Firkraag. Mana Form Hellkite will trigger, and Jason decides to respond to both by cracking his Arid Mesa, which finds him an untapped Temple Garden, and he'll tap it for a white to cast Path to Exile on Firkraag. Simon decides to respond by tapping for a blue to cast Slip Out the Back, targeting his commander, which triggers the Mana Form Hellkite again. It'll then resolve, and Firkraag will get a counter and phase out. Then Path will fizzle, he gets a 4/4 Mana Form Hellkite token, and then the duplication will fizzle. Let's move to combat now. Territorial Hellkite chooses Matt again, and then everything else goes at Jason. So Matt takes 6, and Jason takes 9. The turn is then passed, and the Mana Form Hellkite tokens die on end step. Now on Lauge's turn, he'll start off by tapping for 2 and casting Saw in Half, targeting Kokusho. So it's destroyed, and 2 3/3 Kokushos are created. A death trigger is put on the stack, and then the legend rule takes effect, killing one of these Kokushos, which means all of Lauge's opponents will lose 10 and he gains 30. Oh, and for future reference, real Kokusho is going to the graveyard, not the command zone. After this, he'll tap for 3 and transmute Dimir Houseguard. This'll tutor Strands of Night into his hand. After this, he'll pay 4 life to Necropotence and exile 4 cards. Then he'll move to end step and put those cards in his hand, then move to cleanup and exile 3 cards. Then we move to Matt's turn, where he'll start off with that Snow Mountain as land for turn. Then he'll tap all 6 lands and sacrifice 2 treasures to cast Astral Dragon. And his 2 copies will be Fires of Yavimaya. And it seems that Matt, Jason, and Simon all agree on public enemy number 1, so Matt moves to combat and will swing for 10 at Lauge. He'll take the damage, and then the turn is passed to Jason. And he'll show the table Bloom Tender. That taps for Wooburg and has haste. So he'll tap it for Wooburg, and then use the green and the blue, and then tap for 2 more with his lands to cast Inga and Essica. After this, he'll use his 3 floating mana to cast Rivaz of the Claw. And since all of that mana came from a creature, he draws a card. Then Kiora's Follower will untap the Tender, which is immediately tapped for Wooburg again. Rivaz is then tapped for 2 red, and then all the mana except for 1 white is used to cast the Ancient Copper Dragon under the Hostage Taker. And once again, that mana came from creatures, so Jason draws another card. He'll then use the white and tap 2 more creatures for mana to cast Kutzil, and he draws another card. After this, he'll use his last 2 mana to cast Blood Splatter Analysis. When it ETBs, he'll have its 3 damage pointed at the 3/3 Kokusho, and when it dies, everyone is drained for 5. The analysis will also get a counter in Jason Mills' Farseek. Then he'll move to combat and swing 15 damage at Lauge. There's pretty obviously no blocks, and when Jason connects, Niv-Mizzet will trigger, and X is 5, so he'll draw 5, gain 5, and then deal 5 to Lauge's face. Yes, he did forget about Vigilance, he'll remember here in a second. There's also an Ancient Copper Dragon trigger, and it's just not feeling it today. It rolls a 4 this time. So Jason makes 4 treasure tokens. But it lets him keep going, so post-combat he'll cast Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy. who can be tapped for 2 mana that can be used for creature spells, so Jason will do that and cast Fiend Artisan. 2 treasures are sacked for 4 mana, and Fiend Artisan is activated, sacrificing Rivaz. And this tutors Feyburrow Elder to the battlefield. Jesus Christ, when is he gonna stop? Vigilance is then remembered. Feyburrow Elder is then tapped for 6 mana. Then Kutzil for 2, and Zoanthrope X is 6 is cast. So it'll enter with 6 1/1 counters, Lauga is dealt 6 to the face again, and Jason draws a card. Oh yeah, and all that mana was from creatures again, so he draws another card. After this, Jason will shock in a Stomping Ground, and then tap his Ancient Copper Dragon for 2 to cast Dweger Hedgemage. He controls both 2 mountains and 2 plains, so he will blow up Soul Ring and Necropotence. Then this crazy turn is passed. On end step, Simon puts another counter on the Crucible, and then we'll move to his turn. And his commander will phase back in. Then he'll play a mountain as land for turn. Then he'll tap for 4 and cast Big Score, discarding a mountain. His Manaform Hellkite will trigger and make him a 4/4. Then he'll draw 2 cards and make 2 treasures. And thanks to those treasures, he's also able to cast Frontier Warmonger. After this, he'll move to combat, and wow, that Territorial Hellkite really doesn't like Lauga. So 6 flying will go at him, and then the rest will go at Jason for a total of 16. Firkraag will then trigger and go to Ancient Copper Dragon. Simon's creatures will then also get Menace. Then Jason moves to blocks, and he puts Zoanthrope and Niv-Mizzet underneath Firkraag and blocks 8 damage. Then damage will go through, and Niv-Mizzet and Firkraag will die. And even though he does die, he still sees the Territorial Hellkite hit Lauga, so Simon will get to draw a card. Blood Splatter Analysis will also trigger, and Jason mills Delighted Halfling. And then the turn is passed. Lauga plays another Swamp, and then he'll cast Strands of Night for 3 mana. Then he'll immediately pay 2 black, 2 life, and sacrifice a Swamp to get Kokusho back to the battlefield. He'll then immediately tap for 1 and cast Culling the Weak, sacrificing Kokusho to float 4 black mana. And there's also a death trigger. Then, using that 4 black mana, Lauga will get Kokusho back again by playing 2 black, 2 life, and sacrificing another Swamp. Then we'll see Demonic Tutor get cast. It only cost him 1 mana, so he's still got 1 floating, so he'll cast what he tutors for, and that is actual factual sacrifice. So Kokusho is sacrificed, and he'll float 6 black mana. Then all of his opponents are drained again. And with this drain, Matt and Jason will die. After this, Strands of Night is activated to bring back Soldevi Adonate, and yes, he did forget about his life gain, but he'll remember here soon. After this, he'll cast Rescue from the Underworld, sacrificing the Adonate and targeting Kokusho, so at the beginning of the next upkeep, both will return to the battlefield. And then the turn is passed to Simon. And he'll start off by tapping for 4 and casting Unexpected Windfall, discarding a mountain. So he'll get 2 treasures, 2 cards, and then a Manaform Hellkite 4/4. He'll then tap for another 4 and cast Sarkon's Unsealing, and this gets him another 4/4. Simon will then move to combat, and he swings his Territorial Hellkite and his 2 4/4s at Lauga, and he'll just take the damage because they gain Menace. Simon will then move to his end step and flash in Dress Down, making all creatures lose all abilities. We'll then move to Lauga's turn, where he'll cast Phyrexian Plaguelord. Then he'll move to his end step, and Dress Down is sacrificed, and he'll sacrifice Kokusho to the Plaguelord, draining and killing Simon. And that makes Lauga and Kokusho the winners. Congratulations. Well, that was quite the exciting game. Personally, though, I just love dragons, so yeah, I was going to love this game regardless. Everyone got to send big things with wings at their opponents, except for Lauga, who sent a big noodly thing to the graveyard a lot and drained his opponents. Yeah, he gained a lot of life this game, which was crazy. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. And yes, he did miss lethal at one point. I know you already commented that. We were just having a good, fun game of Magic the Gathering. Anyways, that's all for me today. Hope you all have a smooth day.